Hi everyone, my name is Neil Rogers. Today we're going to start lesson 1 of A Portrait in Charcoal. In today's lesson we're going to look at manipulating our reference photo digitally. We'll also look at some of the different types of charcoal that we're going to use. Let's get started.
To start with, the most common charcoal will be, this is willow. I think in certain parts of the world it would be vine, depends, that's just the type of wood that's used. But it comes in various sizes. This is like really thin. You can go up to jumbo. I don't think we'll be using that for this piece, but you know, this is great if you want to put working on a large board, large drawing. You know, you can do lots of various things with it. The thin one, nice thin delicate lines. What we can use, you know, it comes in various sizes. This is a medium. Again, you can sharpen these. You can put you with sandpaper, make it into a nice fine point. This is, you know, the basis of all our charcoal drawings. The beauty of it, the vine or the willow, is that you put those marks down, but you can get your kneadable eraser and you can rub them out pretty much back to white paper. You know, the marks don't stay there. Well, they do a little bit, but most of the time we can get it right back to clean paper. One of the other things we've got is compressed charcoal. So this is the charcoal powder with the binding agent. This is really dark. This is what we want to use when we're doing our darks. What you'll find with that is that that's much harder to erase. You can see it kind of smudges, and that will stay there. So we need to, you know, you need to be absolutely certain when you get onto the compressed charcoal that colour, that dark, is going to be where you want it to be. You can get charcoal pencils. I've got a selection here. So we've got Generals, I've got a Derwent, a Conte, I've got different peel and sketch charcoal from Generals as well. At the moment, my favourite would be this Generals. It's a 6B extra soft, really nice. You know, this will be used when we're looking at getting the details in. So it's a compressed charcoal, but obviously you can sharpen it to a real fine point. So when we're looking at things like drawing the eyes, we can use that as one of our tools. Again, it's a compressed charcoal, so it's quite difficult to erase. So the general idea is that we'll start with the willow, because we know if we make a mistake with the willow, we can pretty much erase it. It'll go back to white paper. And then when we're sure we've got everything that we want in place, then we can start looking at compressed charcoal. We can start looking at the charcoal pencils. We can also look at the erasers that we're going to use. So this is a kneadable eraser. You've just seen me using it. It's obviously the naming. We can knead it, shape it into any shape that we want. So if you want to get real fine details, we can put a nice little point on it and we can go through the charcoal there. If we want to get big wide, take a lot out, we can just do that. I mean, these are, you know, when I'm drawing, this is in my hand all the time. It's almost like a stress ball. It's kind of, the warmer it gets, the more kneadable it gets, so it's always kind of in my hand. I'm always squeezing it. Very relaxing. I've also just started to use one of these, which is a Tombow Mono Zero Ultra Fine. This is like a propelling eraser. You can see that, so it's really fine. Brilliant if when we get to the hair, we can just draw really fine lines with it. And I also use it as a kind of blending tool, because it doesn't, if you use it because it's so fine, we can kind of cross hatch with it almost, taking charcoal off. We'll also be using blending stumps. And these are rolls of paper that you can buy, they're fairly cheap. These are great because they just, if we were to put a little bit of charcoal down and then we want to just smooth it out, I mean, you've got to go, you're going quite lightly with that. You can see we've got holding it at the end, but it just blends it into the paper. And the beauty of these is that the more that you use them, so they end up with a bit of charcoal on them, you can carry on using them as a drawing tool as well. So if we had the compressed charcoal, let's say we had a bit of compressed charcoal there, we're doing it nice and dark, we've blended it in, all of that will still be on there, so I can then carry on somewhere else with a nice dark that eventually blends out. Really useful. I mean, you don't have to, I mean, as soon as you've blended the dark, if you don't want the dark on there, then you take your piece of kitchen roll, paper, and you can get rid of it on there, and then it'll be nice and light. It's always going to have some charcoal on there, but they're great for blending in. Let's now look at some of the marks that we can make with charcoal and why it's such a great material for drawing. So we'll take our normal stick of vine, we can go nice thin lines, we can go as light as we like, we can go as dark as we like. So we can see we can get, if we want to do detail, you can see where I've rubbed, I've got to a nice sharp edge, which is why I can do lots of thin lines. If I use the flat of it, I could do a thicker line, and if I use all of it, which is we can then cover lots of ground very quickly. We can get that. Now obviously with that, we're looking at it and going, we can see the texture of the paper. Do we want to see the texture of the paper? If we don't, we can use our blending stump. We can blend in, or if we want to, we can use our fingers, rub it in, or we could use a kitchen towel and rub it in. As you can see, we can get a nice ground very quickly. And again, we can still take away with our eraser. We can use our small eraser, thin one. You can see we can get lots of thin lines. And that's the beauty of the Vine charcoal. We can cover it a lot of paper. We can do thin lines, we can do thick lines, we can, say if we're looking at the side and we wanted a big piece of dark, we can just do that. We can get some really interesting effects with it. We can smudge it, we can bring it out if we want to. And keep the darks really dark. One of the things with willow and vine charcoal is that you have to leave it, if you want it to stay dark, if you want the dark to stay dark, then you've got to leave it on there. You can get your real dark on there. However, it won't stay. It's not like compressed charcoal. You know, that will always, if we're to do that, you know, we can get it back, which is one of its great qualities, but it's one of the things that can be really annoying, especially if you're working on something and you suddenly you smudge it or you inadvertently. Whereas if we were to use the charcoal pencil or compressed charcoal and we wanted to get that nice and dark, we were to do that, we could get some of it off. We could certainly get some of it off. It would take a bit of doing, but you can see there's always going to be, it's always going to be a bit there. It doesn't come off completely. Whereas with the vine or the willow, you can pretty much get it back to how you want. If you don't get it back to perfect, then we can get our white charcoal pencil. We can go over with that. That can get us pretty much back to white. So there's some great little things we can use. One of the other erasers that I didn't mention before is one of these. You can get yourselves a little battery operated eraser. I mean, this was quite cheap off Amazon. A couple of batteries in it. You might think, what on earth do you need that for? But you can see it's quite a small eraser at the end, and you can, say if you're looking at the highlight in an eye, you know, you can go straight in and you can erase just a small section. Quite interesting. One of the other things that we can use is one of these. This is it's called a pounce bag. I think you can probably buy them, I'm not sure. All this is for me is, let's just see if we can, it's an elastic band. I've got a square of old t-shirt, and inside that is some charcoal powder. Now your charcoal powder, you can just crush up your vine or willow, you can crush it up. You can see this, I've got the bag, and it's just a square, and inside, if you can see, is just a bit of charcoal powder. You tie that up, put the elastic band on it, and then what we can do with this is just to, you can see the charcoal just comes out. You can draw with it. It gives a really fine grey. If you pat it, you can get more charcoal out, which gets a bit darker. You can go over the charcoal that you've already got in the dark. It does make a mess. If you're going to use it, if you're going to try it, be aware that you'll get dust everywhere, and charcoal dust does get everywhere. So don't use it over your best carpet. I would make sure you've got your studio set up that you don't mind wherever you're drawing, you don't mind there being a bit of a mess about, because as you can see, you might be able to see, it comes out and dust will fly everywhere. Everywhere will be covered in dark. One of the other things you can do with that, I've got a little mister sprayer. In there is acetone. Now acetone is very dangerous, highly flammable. It's basically nail varnish remover, nail polish remover. You can buy it. You want to try and get 100% pure a lot of nail varnish remover has a lot of water in it. So I've got this little spray, it's got acetone in. If you've got charcoal that's sitting on, a lot of people ask me when they see mine, how do you get the bubble effect? You just spray. Sometimes you can flick and you'll end up with the little bubbles, little fun marks. It's quite you know, I don't think it's necessary. It's one of those experimental things that you can do. It's quite nice halfway through sometimes when you're drawing. I can spray a little bit on and it kind of diffuses the charcoal out a little bit, kind of blends it. Gives some interesting effects, worth playing around with, but do be aware it's highly flammable. It's not very pleasant. You certainly don't want to get it in your eyes, and there's a lot of fumes as well, so you want a well ventilated area if you're going to use that. The beauty of it is as soon as it's dried, and it does dry very quickly, you can rework it. It doesn't. If you use water, it will stay permanent. But with this, as soon as it's dried, you can rub it out. You know, it's as if you haven't used it. So it's one of those. It's fun to play around with if you can, as long as you're careful. But it can give some interesting, really interesting marks that it's worth playing around with. As long as as long as you're in a well ventilated place.
So this is the photo that I've chosen for this class. I've chosen it because I think it's an interesting pose. We've got some lovely contrast between the light on this side of the face and the dark of the hair. It's in focus. It's got some good little highlights that we can pick up on the nose, bottom of that lip. It'll be, I think it's a really fun photo to try and work from. We've got that hair, which is going to be interesting when we get towards the end. That'll give us, hopefully I've got some good tips for you on that. So yeah, when I'm looking for a photo to work from, these are the sort of things I look for. You know, have we got good definition? Is it in focus? Can I zoom in? When I zoom in, can I still see? Can I see these details on the eyebrows? And you know, that's all there for us. So we can go any way we want with this, really. You know, because the whole head's there, we can really do what we want. We could crop it if we wanted to, go really close. We could take away some of this background, we could darken it. You know, these are some of the things that we'll look at on the couple of free apps that we can use to have a play with a few ideas. The first app that I go to is an app called Snapseed by Google. So I'm going to open this photo up. Now, there's loads of different things you can do. This is a photo editing app. It's got quite a lot of stuff on it. The two main ones that I use really are the crop, where you can, as it says, crop the image down if you want to. You know, so you can play around where that face is going to fit on your canvas. And the other one we can use is the tune image. So because we're doing a drawing in this class, a charcoal drawing, it makes it much easier if we can take the colour out of the drawing, of the photo. So that comes easily with this tune image. So if you look, I hold on to this, we can adjust from brightness, contrast, the saturation, which I've just done, which takes all the colour out. We've got ambience, highlights, shadows and warmth. So I've made it black and white. Then I tend to have a look at the brightness, and I tend to knock it just down a little bit just to make it a bit less bright. Contrast you can play around with, so you know, less contrast, more contrast. I'm just going to keep that fairly similar. Saturation we've already done. Ambience is an interesting one in that you can smooth it out if you go that way, so you can see you lose a lot of the details, or if you come that way it kind of highlights the hair and things that are in the shadows. So I think for this one we'll just play around with it, find out what you like, you know, what comes up with an image that's good for you. I mean, there's lots of different filters you can play around with as well on it. So highlights, you know, you can either darken them down, lighten them up. I quite like to take a bit of the highlights off. And shadows, again, you can either go really dark or lighten it up. I think we'll just go a little bit lighter. So, you know, this is it's a free app. I think you can play around with this after you've taken a photo of your painting or drawing as well, and crop that so you can get you know, the edges, maybe the frame or the background that's in your photo of your painting, so you can crop that and adjust it so it's more like, you know, you get it closer to the original. Really useful app. I use it all the time. I think it's great for cropping photos down. So I recommend that you download that and play around with it. So as soon as I've messed around with this now, you click the tick button, and then I want to save it. So you can either save a copy, or you save it where it modifies the original image. So I would save a copy, so we've always got the original photo to work from as well. And yeah, so we can see we've already taken out the colour. I mean, it's useful even if you're doing a painting to take out the colour, so you can just see the values and see, you know, where's light, where's dark, what do I need to work on. So yeah, I really recommend using this one. And then we're going to have a look at another app where we can just mess around a little bit with the backgrounds and try different ideas. Okay, so we're going to open up Adobe Photoshop Sketch, which again is a free app. Really, I think it's just the brushes from Photoshop, but you know, we can open up the photo that we've just adjusted, and then we can play around with the background and the brushes. So if I tap on the colour, and that's the brush size, that's how much ink there is, and you've got all these different brushes. So I quite like the spray one, and I like the fact that you can either drop the density down. So, you know, if we go down to say 20 or 17, it won't come out. You can still see some of the image underneath, but you know, this is a great little tool. I've only just discovered it. I'm not by any means a digital artist. I don't use many digital tools, but this is one I've just discovered, and I think it's really interesting. Really interesting to play around with. You know, this background with the plants in, I find that maybe we can just get rid of those plants. You know, it's quite, I'm not doing too much really, but just, you know, maybe we could, if we took it up just a little bit there, so we had a bit more space around. You know, nothing too detailed. I mean, you could spend a long time on this if you wanted. I mean, I do mess around with them sometimes when I'm sitting in front of the TV, a little bit bored. You can just mess around and try different compositions. It's really interesting. I mean, this is a way of, for me, you know, this is what, instead of doing like thumbnail sketches in your sketchbook, you know, this is a way of just trying out ideas. You know, maybe we could go really dark up here. Maybe we could bring that dark down. Maybe we could make it more like a drawing. Maybe we could crop a bit of that out. Crop some of there. You know, these are, it's just ideas. But I like on this, that the canvas, you see that's your canvas size, quite a big canvas, so you can extend it, mess around with it, try different ideas. Do we want a dark background? Do we want a light background? Do we want, you know, the inverted triangle that I'm doing there, or would we want it to go the other way? You know, so a traditional kind of triangle going up instead of the inverted triangle. All things that, you know, are quite useful. I mean, there's quite a few different brushes, and, you know, play around with it, see which ones you like. Got one there that says pastel. You know, that'll just give you a solid, block it all out. Different brush sizes, worth playing around with. I mean, you know, you can use it for your painting ones as well. They've got, you know, you've got all these colours, everything you could play with, and it just, yeah, find some ideas, just scribble away. If you don't like it, you know, you can undo it. If you don't like all of it, you can just go onto the layer and delete it and go back to the start again. Really fun, and it's a good way of just trying out ideas. So I hope you try it. I'm going to be working from this image, but I've already manipulated it, so that's the one I'm going to work from. So I'm going to flip back and forwards between the original and the one that I've made some marks around the outside, just to give me an idea. I mean, you know, I'm not going to slavishly copy what I've done on the outside, but it just gives me a rougher idea, a better idea of what kind of thing I'm trying to aim for when I'm putting charcoal on the paper. So I hope that helps. I hope you try it, and next we're going to have a look at putting some marks on the paper with all our different types of charcoal. Okay, that's the end of lesson 1. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.